Hey everyone, it's Emily. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. This is such an exciting video because I am finally finishing my 3,000 piece puzzle. This is by the brand Treecer and it is a picture of the world. It's called the World Map number 2. And what is very cool about this puzzle is that it was created by 9 different artists and it features 257 endangered animals, all within where they live on the world map. And I've been working on this since December. It does come in 4 quadrants. I finished quadrant 4 last night, so let's just go back in time. I'll walk you through where we've been to now, but what I haven't done yet is actually put all 4 quadrants together. So we're gonna do that together at the end so I can show you the full map complete, and I cannot wait. I hope you enjoy it. Make sure to subscribe if you're new, and we're just gonna get started. Before we get into part 4, just a little update up until this point. So part 1 was done during a puzzle with me, and if you are new to this puzzle, it is done in 4 quadrants, but the bags are separated into 2 halves. So when I was done with part 1, I actually was missing a couple pieces, but it was just because I did a really bad job sorting at the very beginning. So I did end up finding those pieces, but here is the end of part 1, and this one was super fun. Lots and lots of blue, so really had to work with sorting by piece shape, and that was pretty much the strategy for every single quadrant. So when I went to part 2, which was in January, it was a lot easier because I knew exactly how I needed to sort. So I sorted by land, blue with animals, blue with land, and then just straight up blue with clouds and such. So lots of blue pieces, but if you sort by piece shape, it really isn't too bad. I wouldn't recommend blending the 2 bags together because you would end up with actual true false fits because it is just a repeat of the pattern. So you would have a lot more issues. So I did end up just doing it by quadrants. So here's the end of part 2. And then part 3 I did not film just because it was the same exact strategy as I did for parts 1 and 2. But let's move into part 4, and I will say for this one I did a little bit more sorting than I had the previous quadrants. Maybe I learned a thing or two, but I also feel like there was just a little bit more to work with. So on this one we had a whole section of the white Arctic down in the South Pole, and that was a nice little section to sort, as well as the edge pieces. And since this was my last quadrant, I did have the option to use the edges for the full border because I had those on other quadrants of the puzzle. I think at one point I do end up taking the top just because it was really hard to decipher where the top pieces were on this one. So I did end up using the top edge as well that I took from parts 3 that I did. But going into this one, I felt like it was a little bit easier because we had a very distinct corner of the puzzle where it's that underwater scene. It's a very distinct blue. And then again, we had that Arctic area, which was a good amount of pieces as well. So once those 2 sections were done, I was feeling pretty good. And then really there wasn't too much land besides Australia, which was a small section of brown pieces, and then the little tip of Africa. And then other than that, it is a lot of blue and a lot of animals, but somehow I thought this one was a little bit easier than the other ones. Maybe I had done 3 other quadrants before this one, and I knew the brand pretty well and its quirks. This brand does tend to have a lot of pieces that can go in the wrong place. This is why I highly recommend you not mixing the bags or even doing the 2 sections together, because if you had true false fits in there as well as already it having some issues with fit as it was, I think you'd have a really hard time with it. But I kind of knew that going into this one, and I could see where I had messed up or I'd put things in the wrong place. But in general, this one I feel like was a little bit easier. There was a lot less blue than I was expecting because there was a lot of animals to work with. My blue with animals section was definitely larger than I was anticipating, and that really helped with knowing where things go. Now I'm zooming you in here so you can see the amount of detail within this puzzle. Every single animal has so much detail and artwork to it. It is absolutely stunning when you look at the pieces up close. And you have to remember, this is only a quadrant, so there's all this detail, but then when you do the full entire puzzle, it is absolutely spectacular. I love the artwork so much. There's so much stuff to look at, and it was just so much fun to learn about the animals too, because you do have a little insert that tells you all about them. And now that you see that a lot of the animals are in place, you can also tell that there is a bit of a gradient within the blue pieces. So even though there is still a lot of blue at the end, there's still stuff to work with. We have a much brighter blue towards the center of the earth, and then it gets darker as your way out. And then there's also some clouds to work with and some ripples in the water. So even though there is a lot of blue, there is still quite a bit to work from. But I did notice a lot in this area where I did run into puzzle pieces going in the wrong place. So I sorted by piece shape, as you can see, and then really worked one by one in those particular areas to try to fill in all the gaps. And I loved doing this. It was super calm and relaxed. You guys know I love doing sky, and so for me it's really just going one by one and seeing what works. I went by the spot I was working with versus the piece that I was working with, so I always just like picked a spot and then tried to find the one that fit in that place. In perfect kitty fashion, Loki knew that I was about 90% done with the puzzle, so he decided to pause my puzzling for a little bit, taking up the whole entire puzzle. But once we got back to it, I just finished up the blue pieces, and here you can even see towards the very end, I even have the final pieces were in the wrong spot. I thought I was missing some pieces, and I was so bummed, but it turned out there's just some things out of place, and I quickly rearranged them to get the puzzle complete. So that was my strategy going into this, and it was very similar to the other 3 quadrants, but there you go. I really thought this one was beautiful, but let's just now officially put it all together so we can see what it looks like all complete. All right, it is finally time for me to put all 4 sections together. I'm so excited for this. I feel like it's going to be super cool all together and really fun to look at, so let's just get to it. All right, so it is complete, and this is so much fun to look at. I also need to give a shout out to Dave for helping me with being the tripod in that final section where I was putting these 4 quadrants together. It looks so cool. There's so much detail in here. There's so much to look at. So many different animals. I think there's over 250 different endangered species represented here in their habitat. I will say I am happy that it came in quadrants versus all together because there's a lot of blue. I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of blue, but it is very doable, especially if you sort by piece shape. There is a lot of different things to work with. Like even though there is blue, like there's a lot of ocean here. There's different shades. There's a little bit of gradients in areas. There's little ripples in the water and clouds and just animals and islands everywhere. There's so much to work from, so it really isn't too bad. So for me, the hardest section was number 3. Even though it had the most amount of land, it wasn't necessarily that it was difficult to puzzle, it's just I didn't have much motivation to do this section for some reason. Even though it ends up being really cool, there's a ton of animals, lots of different landscapes to work from. I really enjoyed pretty much all of it. All right, that is it for me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I am so excited that this is complete and we can check this one off the list. Eventually, I would love to do their Hold Wildlife series. I do have the whole set, so that is something I would love to start doing. So stay tuned for that new project, but I hope you enjoyed this one. And if you are interested in this puzzle, I'll link it down below if you are curious. It is a Swedish-based company, and that's where you can order it from. So there's a little bit of a conversion for currency. That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you are new, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.